Good afternoon, fellow Ghanaians. I'm happy to be here to assist in our understanding of who is qualified to register and vote in Ghana. I think the issues about democracy and the right to vote are well known, and that is seen from the nature of citizens' behavior towards the registration. Right from the word go, citizens have been very active in the process. So I will not spend time to talk about what it means to have the right to vote in a democracy. Rather, I will go straight to the issues of citizenship. I will narrate two stories. Two stories. The first one is personal because it has to do with my grandfather. The second one is quite remote. Well, remote until you realize that what is happening in Ghana now with the registration can come so close to you. Now, these two stories are to put into context the issue of citizenship and what it means in the framework of elections. Now, the first story. When I was a little boy, around I think 10 years, my grandfather, who would have been probably in his 120 now, may his soul rest in peace, always talk about the Gold Coast. And we were wondering how he said he visited the Gold Coast, and he's speaking from my hometown. So we have been wondering as kids that you are in Ghana, but you always talk as if you were outside Ghana and you visited the Gold Coast. That was also because at primary school, we learned that Gold Coast is the present day Ghana. And as kids, I think much time was not spent to explain to us what Gold Coast really was. So we believe somehow that the Ghana as we see today, the proposed map, was exactly what Gold Coast was. So it was a challenge, but now, after law school, I understand what my grandfather meant when he said he visited Gold Coast. Again, he went to Accra and the other places. I will explain why along the way. The second story has to do with a businessman who lived in Accra. He was the son of a president of an African country. He was living in Ghana under a resident permit. That was in the 1960s. Somewhere in 1969, the Minister for Interior under the NLC administration revoked his resident permit and gave him 48 hours to leave Ghana. He challenged the deportation order in the High Court, and his argument was that he is Ghanaian by descent and that he didn't actually need the resident permit in the first place. Therefore, the revocation still does not allow the minister to take him out of the country. Now, how did he prove his nationality? The law report summarizes evidence as follows, and let me quote. The plaintiff presented evidence that his father was born in Pandu, his paternal grandmother was born and baptized in Keta, his mother was baptized in Keta, his maternal grandmother was born in Keta, and he himself was born in Rome on April 1, 1933. Then the court considered this evidence and held that indeed he was a Ghanaian, and being a Ghanaian could not be deported. Now there are a few lessons from this story, this second story. First, the decision meant that the person, was a Ghanaian, Two, it meant that his father, who was a president in another African country, was a Ghanaian. It also means that his sons, the plaintiff's sons and daughters, were also Ghanaians. It also means again that his grandchildren were also Ghanaian. Number 5, it means also that once you are Ghanaian, no one can remove you from Ghana. But even most importantly, 6, that once you are Ghanaian, no one can prevent you from entering the Republic of Ghana. Now, this person, the plaintiff's name is Bonito Olympi, and his father was the former president of Togo, Sylvanus Olympi. Sylvanus himself, his father was Epivando Olympi. He was a Nigerian trader who lived in Ghana around the 1902s. A Catholic priest was called to prove that Olympio's grandmother was born in Keka, a Catholic priest. He simply used the birth, the Catholic Church keeps a birth registry for persons. These days it's not common because of, but when you go to the village, you still find that the only place you can find an official record of birth is to be in the Catholic Church or other Orthodox churches. But that evidence was essential in the trial. I'm raising these issues because eventually I am coming back to what is happening in our country relating to citizenship, the proof of it, and what you can do as a citizen when it comes to elections. Now let me skip the issues about democracy and the right to vote because my understanding is that we don't have a lot of time. Now back to my grandfather's story. Immediately before independence, in 1957, what we call Gold Coast was actually called the Gold Coast dependency. And Gold Coast has not always been the map we see today. Before independence, it was made up of 4 territories, 4 different territories. And I'll take them one by one. The coastal colony, which is traditionally called the Gold Coast. Its official establishment was 6th of March 1844, and I'm sure we all remember the bond of 1844. That marked the beginning of, or the official establishment of the colony. But the bond of 1844, as Dr. J.B. Gampa told us, when you read the bond and the chiefs who signed it, it was merely around the peoples and the Nina castles, the chiefs in the central region and some extension, they signed it. So the territory that was called the Gold Coast actually was limited, very limited in scope. But that territory, it stretched from the Asini River, which is presently in Ivory Coast, through to Aflau, and a little much above up to the southern border of the Ashanti Kingdom. What this means is that places like Keta were part of the original Gold Coast. But it also tells us one thing, that even then, the people around the border were not separated on tribal lines. The lines that separated, that the Europeans used to divide or draw their maps, were never in respect of tribes or people or families. It was an arbitrary tribe. Now the second territory is the Ashanti territory. Ashanti was not part of this Gold Coast, the traditional Gold Coast, until 1896, when the British conquered the Ashanti Kingdom and occupied Kumasi and took King Prempeh into exile. And officially speaking, even though the British occupied Ashanti in 1901, it was not until 1934 that Ashanti was fully incorporated into the Gold Coast structure, which means that now Gold Coast grew bigger in size. The third territory is called the Protectorate of the Northern Territories. That included the Kagomba Kingdom and the Mamprisi Kingdom and all the other small kingdoms in the north. This kingdom too was not part of the Gold Coast territory until around 1901 when the Northern Territory Order in Council was passed. It was fully incorporated in 1934 under the Northern Territory Order in Council of that year. However, these divisions among the people never respected tribal boundaries. For example, the Anglo-German boundary of 1890, which was basically the boundary that the British and the Germans agreed along the eastern part of the Gold Coast. In respect of that boundary, the Yana and its capital, Yendi, were part of the German Togoland, while a vast chunk of his kingdom was part of the British colony. And that created another issue, and that applies to the Mamprisis as well. Later, after the World War I, at the Paris Conference, where the British and the French met to draw the boundaries between the German Togoland, it was at that conference that they reunited a greater part of the kingdoms in the Northern Territories. They, however, left the southern part of the Togoland with the arbitrary boundaries. In fact, one researcher captured the situation as follows, and I'm quoting: if the new boundaries joined tribes in the north once again, however, it had the opposite effect in the south, where the Anglo-French frontier now split the Ewe-speaking tribes into separate groups. Though there was some agitation among the Africans, and though they sent a petition to the British government protesting the petition of Ewe-land, the territory was divided. The territory as divided has already been determined by the Paris Peace Council. Now, this is how the Paris Peace Council, distributed the German Togoland after the World War. After the First World War, with the situation, I'm quoting from another source, with the situation in view, it was decided at the Paris Peace Conference that Togoland should be divided in such a way as to unite these tribes, area of about 13,000 square miles in the western portion of the Great Britain, and the French received a larger and more important eastern section containing 19,690 miles, having access to the coast at the port of Lomé and containing a railroad. What this tells us is that even after the agitation by the people for a reunification of their tribes, the Europeans took more interest in their economic activities than in the unity of the people. So they insisted that while they resolved the northern question, resolving the southern one in that same light would affect the economic interest, so they left it as it is. Now, the last territory to join the Ghana, which now, so we are building the Ghana map, was the mandate of the British Togoland. And this is also the most controversial of all the additions. The de facto existence of the British Togoland happened in the early years of the First World War in 1916 and became official when the League of Nations was formed in 1921. Now, F.M. Burette summarized how Germans lost the Togoland. And let me state that the German Togoland extends from the present-day Volta region eastward up to the western boundary of Dahomey, which is now the current Benin. So from that part way up north, down to where the water region is now, is what the Germans held. But the Germans lost this territory in the beginning of the First World War. And this is what a researcher narrated how Germany lost the territory. As soon as the war broke, as the World War I broke out in the summer of 1914, British forces from the Gold Coast dependency and French forces from Dahomey cooperated in an immediate attack upon Togoland. The efficiency of the invasion and the limited strength of the rested German contingent combined to make possible its speedy reduction. By August 7, 1914, the town of Lomé was in the hands of the British. By August 26, after several engagements and destruction of the great German wireless station in Kamina, the acting governor unconditionally surrendered the entire colony to invading forces. Now, back to my grandfather's situation, and I will begin to understand why, even though he was living in Ghana, he talked about the Gold Coast as though Gold Coast was another country. Because he was living under the German colony called the Togoland. And his siblings or relatives and other friends were on the Ghana side of the border. So it made sense why, even though we thought being in Ghana, you cannot talk of Gold Coast as another country. To them, it was a different country. Now this also brings us to what the philosopher Anthony Pamiakia, one of the top philosophers in the world, who has taught in Oxford, in Harvard, Princeton, New York. He called something mistaken identities. The mistaken identity paradigm argues that, and I'm quoting, subjects that we rely on to define ourselves are often wrong or misleading. He spends his words, in the Greek lectures, the BBC Greek lectures, arguing that subjects such as race, culture, religion, and nationhood, by which we tenaciously claim to cause havoc to humanity, are as transient as anything else. They change so frequently that the person who, for example, began life as a national of a particular country could, without doing anything or without leaving home, become a national of another country. Well, this captures the situation of my grandfather, who never traveled extensively, but in different times was a national of Germany, and then later Britain, and then later became a Ghanaian citizen. Deciding which nation is yours is further complicated when political boundaries keep shifting. And let me add that it is even more entangling, and I know the entangled word has become very common these days, and more entangling in our present situation when elections are coming. When elections are coming, nationality and citizenship become an issue. But it's even more important today, because this is not the first time we are having an election in Ghana. So the question that we need to be asking is, why has citizenship become so important today than all the other elections, even the ones that we have had, from a full term 8-term 7 government to now? Why is election citizenship so important and become a very controversial issue? Now, let's look at the key issue of citizenship. A few weeks ago, a member of parliament, Honorable A.T. Hammond, and let me quote what he said. I'll just take an excerpt. He began his explanation why the military was deployed along the eastern borders of Ghana, particularly those that mark the water region. He said, the Togolese, they are not Ghanaians, and I'll quote. You see, this statement is loaded with a number of assumptions, all of which are flawed. If you say that Togolese are not Ghanaians, you are first of all assuming that a person cannot be a Ghanaian if he is already a Togolese. But that is flawed. We know that you can be a Ghanaian and also a citizen of another country. It also means that another assumption, so they are deploying military men along the borders to prevent non-Ghanaians from entering. And we know the procedure for proving your nationality. The military is not trained to examine documents. I mean, soldiers with arms in the bush do not have any means to determine, and we know how our soldiers operate. They do not have the equipment or what it takes to determine whether someone is Ghanaian or not. But, so the second assumption is that a Ghanaian cannot be resident in Togo, so that anyone who is crossing from Togo to Ghana must be prevented by the military. The third assumption is that if you are coming into Ghana, you could be removed regardless of the nationality. And the evidence subsequently showed that there were people who were Ghanaians or who claimed to be Ghanaians who have been what? Returned to Togo, and those who managed to enter were also removed forcibly back to Togo without any due process, even though these people insisted that they were Ghanaians. This is not all. When the issue came up, we were expecting that the president of Ghana, who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, who oversees all these programs at the National Security Council, and who gives instruction, he explained the matter this way, and I'm quoting. Let me state, without any form of equivocation, that these deployments are not in any way intended to intimidate or prevent eligible Ghanaians from registering to vote in December. So here, the president is admitting that the military have been deployed to guard the borders. But to him, it is not intended that the soldiers who are on these borders would intimidate anybody, but they are just preventing what? People who are terrorists or whatever. But see, that is where the problem is. Two things. Either there is some mischief or there is a deliberate attempt to run away from what? The reality. And the reality, before I came here for the past 3 days, since I announced out here, I've been receiving reports, text messages, some from the borders telling me some of the scenarios. And I'll read some of them to you, which will expose the falsehood in what we have been told by officials. One of them said, he says, "Good morning, CJ. The NPP Akan constituency," then he put into bracket KJB district, "have in their possession a so-called Togolese voters register, and their agents have copies from which they identify known faces and challenge them as non-Ghanaians, though such individuals have the NIA Ghana card. When the challenged applicants appear before the District Registration Review Committee, they are made to confess that they are indeed the individuals on the Togolese register. On that basis, they are asked to further provide evidence of dual citizenship, or their cards are withheld. This is one of such withheld cards to his Ghana card document number is boldly printed on the form once, and then he attaches the card that was withheld and then sent to me. So this is the scenario. We have someone somehow procured the Togolese National Register, voters register. And this voter register is distributed to, it says NPP polling, assistants along the border towns. And these people, knowing their own compatriots, once they see your name on the Togolese register, regardless of what evidence you present as a Ghanaian citizen, your card is withheld if you are not denied the registration entirely. This follows through, if you consider this scenario and you link it with what Honorable Katie Hammond said, you will know that these people are operating, the Electoral Commission and all these agents are operating with the assumption that a Togolese is not or cannot be a Ghanaian. So if I am a Ghanaian and I'm at the same time a Togolese, which is allowed at law, I'm refused or I'm denied a registration simply because someone, I don't even want to question the authenticity of that register that you said is Togolese register, assuming that it's invalid. The fact that my name is, I'm eligible to vote in Togo does not disqualify me from what? Being eligible to vote in Ghana, because I can be a citizen of Ghana as well as a citizen of Togo. And in fact, I can at the same time be a citizen of Nigeria or US. The funny thing or the interesting thing about this is that persons who have dual citizens in the American or Ghanaian American or Ghanaian British, no one treats them this way. And we have also no evidence that people treat people who have Ivorian citizenship and Ghanaian citizenship this way. It is only on these borders that we hear these stories. Now let me give a second story which will put everything into context and prove to you that the assumption that Togolese cannot be Ghanaians is not just a slip of tongue, it's a deliberate policy which has every machinery to deploy, to implement it. Now the second scenario is a good day. A voter applicant was arrested and detained for using unapproved entry points to Ghana. He was arrested at the registration center near to Ghana-Togo border. He was taken to court last week on Monday, and a lawyer secured bail for him. The case is to be called on 6th August. The police deported him back to Togo. This morning, it has emerged that he returned to the registration center and was challenged as not being a Ghanaian. At the District Registration Review Committee, which has the police commander as a member, he has appeared to defend himself, and the commander wants to rearrest him for entering Ghana illegally again. The applicant's argument is that the 6th August date will deny him the right to register and vote, because by 6th August, I think the registration in that area would have ended. Now, look at this situation. This is somebody who is insisting that he's Ghanaian. He's taken to court all right to prove his Ghanaian nationality. Meanwhile, even before the court will decide the matter, the police have deported him or returned him back to his country. So the question of even coming for trial and proving his case has become a challenge. This guy manages to get back into the country, and he is going to be deported if he has not already been deported. And these things are happening in our country, and they are happening at a time where citizenship matters most. And they are happening at a time where we have to exercise the most fundamental right of citizenship, the right to vote. One would expect that this is the time that your country, your government, and every institution of state will stand by you, especially when you are even in the doubt, when you are in the doubt as to whether the person is a citizen. What to do is to preserve the person's rights pending the determination of the matter, because this issue of voters register is not going to be there forever. It is ending very soon. But who is a citizen? Our laws are very clear on that. It is simple. And let me read the section 1 of the Citizenship Act, which is a reproduction of what is in the Constitution. It said every person who, on the coming into force of the Ghanaian of the Constitution, was a citizen of Ghana by law shall continue to be a citizen. Then it says a person born before 6 March, so it gives you the various, but the summary of this, since we don't have time, is that if one of your parents or grandparents was born in Ghana or is a citizen of Ghana, you are a citizen of Ghana, regardless of where you were born. You understand? So, and we saw it being applied in the Bonito scenario that I narrated. And the proof of that citizenship was not limited to a particular ID card. In fact, it wasn't even a government-issued ID card. It was a Catholic Church register of birth, which was admissible and used as a proof of citizenship. Today, it is not even enough for you to use a Ghana government-issued birth certificate to prove your citizenship. It is not enough to use any other form of identification except the one that is being done recently. And even that, as you saw from the scenario, clearly someone who has been produced that card has been what? Refused the right to register. It makes you doubt if there is any good faith in all what we are hearing about deploying people to the border. It makes you believe that there is a hidden agenda to disenfranchise people who are Ghanaians. And this clearly cannot be a sign of good governance. It cannot be a sign of rule of law. It cannot be a sign of respect for human rights. And it cannot be a sign of democracy, which we are all experimenting. I will take my seat while I yield the podium to my senior tutor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.